Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Ryan. This is my new podcast. Today's guest is Casey Dehle. She is my what do we call each other?
Hi, twos.
My ride or die. My former Propelio co-host when we were on Propelio TV.
We're just trying to. He's just drowning us out now.
Day two of the Tommy production in the background.
You're doing a really good job, Tommy.
Yeah, I even gave him a mic and he hasn't used it yet.
Thank you.
Anyway, so today's podcast and today's video, we're going to be talking about the realities, the struggles of entrepreneurship. Because I think one thing you're really good at is
struggling.
Well, but visually it's like, oh, Casey's so pretty and she's got all her shit together. But like confidentially, like phone call, it's like, I'm drowning. I hate my life.
Well, you clearly haven't been seeing my stories where I'm quite transparent about the shit show that is happening.
Oh, yeah. So let's get into the shit show that is Casey Dehle.
Yes. For all of you out there, it's about to get real.
Yeah.
I think, am I a little too far away?
There you go.
Yeah, I think I try to be transparent about it because this stuff is not easy at all. And I think a lot of people out there try to put on a brave face and keep their motivation strong because they're worried about slipping out of that motivation.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I wish more people would talk about their struggles because I think it would be a little bit more, we'd probably make a lot more progress a lot faster.
Right.
As a community.
Right.
That's how I feel
Sorry,
about
my YouTube thing is broken.
that. The link?
No, the video. I don't know what's going on with the YouTube.
Minor technical difficulties.
Minor technical difficulties. Anyway, hold on a second. Vamp. Just vamp. We'll cut all this out later. It's okay.
I'm gonna put the camera on you though.
Do what?
On me?
Yeah, you gotta.
Where is the camera? I don't even know. I'm in the
little GoPro right there.
Hey everyone.
You can keep talking.
With myself. Well, hey guys, if you while we sort some things out, want to ask any questions or anything, feel free.
That's good.
It's just my computer. Anyway, my bad.
In typical Ryan fashion, putting me on the spot. You're really good at that.
Yeah.
If only people saw behind the scenes at Propelio.
Where's my favorite button over there?
How dare you?
No, the other one. We'll do it live.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
I love it.
But anyway, that's a perfect example of what we're talking about, the struggles of all this stuff and going, oh shit, is it working? Is it whatever? And it is an entrepreneur solo business because it's like the whole point of doing this for me is to A, stay relevant, B, kind of fall into that deal maker role because I do know a lot of people on both sides of the buyers and the sellers. And it's like, and that's why I'm doing that mixer on the 20th is to kind of come out as, hey, if you got deals, if you got stuff, send them to me so we can do business. Anyway, back to you in your shit show.
No, we are all in this shit show together. This is all of us.
It's good content, y'all. No, but so let's get into that. Like, what makes it a shit show? What is it? The amount of work that you're doing? Is it? I mean, what is it that it's like? Oh my God, this is too much.
I think honestly, listen, the term entrepreneur is vague in and of itself. I think that we throw this term around and it automatically means CEO of a business.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's what most people are aiming for. And I think
most people are just aiming for money and freedom.
Well, I think that's a big part of it too. I heard a quote today and they said money isn't a purpose, like money is a result. And I think when you're trying to be an entrepreneur for the money as the purpose,
right.
I think you're faced with this kind of idea that you have to scale super fast and you have to make the money super fast. And this is why you're an entrepreneur, is to make the fast money and to not, wait around working for somebody else to get it. And so I think that mindset is quickly like, gotta hustle. And I think that we dive into these things, whether it be real estate or, whatever you're an entrepreneur in, without really knowing ourselves first and knowing what we really want to build first. I think we just go down a path of saying, well, I don't want to work for anyone and I really want freedom and this is the only path that I can take. Now, that's maybe one step, But then you have this whole journey ahead of you of peaks and valleys that are going to be a whole rainbow of situations for you where you're figuring out who you are and figuring out what seats you're supposed to be in and what you're actually building. And then B, you're being faced with building the company in itself and operating it. And so not only do you have that accountability and responsibility, but you're also kind of battling your mindset every single day. And I think that's really, really tough work. I didn't realize how much I would change working for myself. It has been crazy. And that's the hardest work, I think. So when you're going through the emotions of figuring out yourself and what you're good at and taking on roles that you may not necessarily want to do, you have to realize that you have the idea of being in charge of a company that's self-operating, but you have to build that, and that could take years.
Right. So because I know we've talked in the past about finding out what it is you want to do versus what you have to do, and then as quickly as possible, kind of get rid of the things that you don't want to do and either get a VA to do that or get somebody else to do that altogether. What is that? At what point in time do you do that? And then how do you determine, because I know that's a huge fear. I mean, that's something I struggle with all the time is yes, you could potentially hire somebody to do something, but I know it takes time to train that person. It costs money to train that person. Whereas I could just do it myself and be done in 8 minutes versus the 6 hour process to get somebody else to do it.
So I think that no one can really answer that for you, which, as we all know and love the phrase, it depends. I think there's two things here. I think a lot of people are trapped in the mindset that they don't have the money to do it. And I think getting over the fear of control is a big issue. I don't think it's more about the money. I think it's about control, and that they might not have a clear picture of the task that the person can do or how they can help them. And the thought of having to figure that out takes more brain power than to just do it themselves. When in reality, I think most people are shooting themselves in the foot. And so when we always say work on your business, part of that is laying out everything you do and making sure that everything that you're doing is with a purpose towards a goal. If you don't have a roadmap, then everything that you're doing might be useless. Like you might be just doing busy work and you don't even know. You think you're getting somewhere, but you're not really spending the time on if you're truly the entrepreneur with the visionary mindset, you should be spending time thinking about your business and your vision. I think we get so bogged down in the busy that we don't take time to put thought. So I was talking to someone the other day and I said, I spend my mornings are very sacred to me. That's why I get up at 5 a.m. mostly, is because I have quiet time to think, okay, what is it that I'm doing today that's going to further me towards my goal? And I realign. And it might take me 20, 30 minutes versus just kind of go through the motions every day to stay afloat and keep my head above water. And then I'm way too exhausted to put my brain energy into how to most efficiently do my job.
Well, I think it's a common thread, a common theme around like the successful people. At least that's what the memes will tell you, that, you know, the most successful, richest people ever get up super early. And one of those reasons is to just be able to have time to themselves. I know my dad, even before the internet, was saying, like, I was always why do you go to the office at 6 a.m.? The reason he would go is because from 6 to 8 is the only time he was able to do any work, because from 8:01 on, it was just phone calls.
Or you're leading a team, and to lead a team means you put your energy towards them. That's how I feel right now. I think I have about 80 plus, almost 90 now, files, like real estate property files.
Right.
And
I know I saw somebody's comment about coming in today. She's like, or it was a he was like, why are you,
Dan.
why are you don't have time for that.
But this is fun for
How
me,
dare
and this
you.
energizes me. Yeah. That's Dan Francis, everyone.
Yeah.
It energizes me. And so I wanted to do this because A, I get to share kind of a little bit and maybe it will help someone, but B, it kind of energizes me to get it out and talk about it. It kind of helps clarify my vision too. But you're right. I'm really busy, and I'm like, I didn't move for 10 hours yesterday because I was just trying to stay on top and respond to people. Well, I have someone I'm training right now, and it's really difficult.
Are they virtual or are they in person?
One of them's virtual. Yes.
Okay.
So I can have them watch me and do it, but real estate's complicated.
Well, it is complicated, but I think a theme that I've heard a lot, and it's one of those things that you hear so much and it's like, did I create that? Or is that just something that's in the ether that everybody knows? And that's the whole, if you can find somebody who could do it 80% as well as you, that's a gold mine because you're never going to find somebody who could do it as good as you.
Well, I'll flip that on its head and say something like this. You know, quite frankly, the reason why I'm good for transaction management is because I am a visionary and I think I see the process differently. So I've been able to streamline the process. Now, when it comes to checklists and stuff, trust me, I am not the best. There's probably someone way better out there to do that.
I doubt that. Look at that book.
You'd be surprised. That's really thoughts more than anything. But the diligence that it takes to do those types of things, I hire different people than me. But what people don't realize is depending on the stage you're at in your company, you might need to hire someone that has a little bit more drive and detail oriented versus somebody who's really detail oriented but just is waiting for you to tell them everything to do or needs approval for everything. So I think when we look to hire, there's no cookie cutter. I think everyone looks at their disc profiles and their personality, but are they asking themselves, listen, do they have the drive and the independence as well to help me pick up the pieces?
One thing that always, first of all, this is my next comment is not going to be a dig at the disc or the personality thing, because I know that's such a huge part of like the Harper training and a lot of people and a lot of interviewing process. But for me, like at the end of the day, I don't give a shit what your disc profile says. Did you mission accomplishment? Did you do what you say we're going to do?
I think that's going to bite you down the road.
Probably.
But you know what I found about it?
I'm just going to go solo from here on out.
I don't think that the disc or the PI or any of those things are the end all be all. In fact, I'm a perfect case in point because I'm flatlined. Like I'm a chameleon. I can literally fit in any role. Right. And so people look at me and they're like, I don't even know where best to put you. And I'm like, I don't even know where best to put me. But I did realize that I actually do hover more on the visionary. Now, those tests don't tell you exactly what you should be doing. They just tell you what you should be suited for.
So,
but let me finish. One point about that is that's a really weird thing we do. One thing about that is some people think they're really good at certain things.
Right.
And if you aren't like your job as a leader in your company is to put them in the right place. You'd be surprised at how many people I've talked to that are thriving in their cultures because their leader said, I really don't think this is the right position. You should try this. And they thought, well, no, I'm good at this. And then when they got in that seat, they just exploded and they were like, oh my gosh, that's what I was meant to do.
Right.
There's validity there. A lot of people don't know themselves well enough. Thank you.
Good job, Tommy. That's what I want from you. I actually do. Thank you so much. I totally lost my thought process there on the because that was so.
Well, you're talking about ignoring disc tests.
Well, I didn't.
Just kidding.
I didn't mean ignore. I mean, obviously they're relevant, but at the end of the day, it's like, how do you? Because for you, like you said, you don't know where you're supposed to be. Like, if you don't know where you're supposed to be and you're trying to be an entrepreneur and you're trying to make money, at some point you're going, oh crap, I got to make $2,000 by Friday or, shit is just going to crash on my head.
Well, I understand that feeling, trust me. But here's the thing. I don't know why everybody is under the impression that entrepreneur equals CEO and then there's a whole ecosystem below them. Like,
Right.
I don't know where this thought came from. The whole ecosystem of like leadership, when you've got an integrator or a COO, maybe a chief financial officer, and maybe just managers even over your teams, they should really all be on the same playing field. But it seems like everyone's trying to be the CEO and maybe they aren't fit for that. Maybe they need to partner with somebody who has the vision. But they're just as important in entrepreneurial as the COO or the integrator. It's just for some reason we've glorified this ownership aspect.
Well, I think it's the social media age
I agree.
where it's like you could be a meme-worthy entrepreneur, but at the end of the day, it's like what? Let me Google what entrepreneur actually means, just because I think so many people are like, I'm an entrepreneur. It's like, are you though? Because you're not really doing anything new.
That's a good thought.
You
Like,
know?
how do people define that term? To me, it seems like everybody is saying, well, I work for myself.
Yeah.
Well, no, you're just honestly just created another job for yourself.
Okay, so entrepreneur, according to Google Dictionary, is a noun, first and foremost. A person who organizes and operates a business or businesses taking on greater than normal financial risk in order to do so. So I guess in that standpoint, yeah, as an entrepreneur, everybody that we know, we talk to in the real estate community and small business community are entrepreneurs. But I think there's also another lane that you could take where as an entrepreneur is you're doing something new, something different. Like if you're just wholesaling houses, well, I mean, yeah, that's something that thousands and thousands and thousands of people already do. And you can it's almost like you're a franchisee of this greater thing. But at the end of the day, according to this definition, yeah, well, I guess it's not this, it is the definition.
Yeah.
But,
I would probably look at it more as an entrepreneur as somebody who is maybe recreating an industry or doing it differently or new processes or a new product or something like that. I mean, or it's helping build an idea. And this is what I was talking about yesterday with a couple people too. I mean, in terms of what you're looking for, like the finite game versus the infinite game, it seems like most, and this is Simon Sinek's new book, by the way, I highly recommend you read it.
It's in a box over there
It's
somewhere.
so good. It's so good.
Like all those other books I haven't read yet.
Well, it's really good on audio too. But anyway, he was saying something really simple. And he said, if you're really truly doing something like being an entrepreneur for freedom, for yourself, this is finite. This is a finite game. An entrepreneur to me is somebody who is either completely disrupting an industry or a space, or possibly building a company that could change the way we look or do things, let it be healthcare, anything. Real estate even is in that pod. But I think that if you're just sitting there saying, well, I'm just going to replicate this model and call myself an entrepreneur, I think a lot of people are going to fail. Like a lot of people are going to fail.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like, even with the thing I'm doing with notes is like, I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I am taking a different look at it than what's the commonplace.
And you're processing it differently.
Well, yeah, because I'm processing it in the standpoint of where I can immediately be a business owner, and I'm taking the lessons I learned from like you and Jason, or just all the shows we did at Propelio, and just go, oh, I don't want to fall in this trap where, like Grant Kemp is always saying, where maybe it's you that's saying, it's all kind of come together, where make the business work for you, not you for the business. So I'm trying to build a company where from day one, I'm kind of like, doing the marionettes thing. Mm-hmm. You like that word? I think that's the right word. The puppet master versus actually doing work.
Yeah.
And using the connections, using my knowledge, using everything I've picked up the past couple of years, and applying that versus rolling up my sleeves and getting in the trenches.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of value in that. You have the network, and a lot of us are fortunate that we've built these networks around what we've done to be able to advance probably a little faster than most. This is why we always say go network. But I also think that to say that you're just going to not work in your business in the first 1 to 3 years is unrealistic for most people. Like people get at me all the time, Casey, go eat something. Casey, get up off your computer. And I understand.
I want to point out that neither Tommy or myself have ever told you to do that.
That's true. I appreciate you supporting my workaholicness.
Yes.
But to me, I'm in the building, Atlas is only, I only started that in October.
Right.
I should be putting in 12-hour days, because if I don't know how my business is running or each seat, how am I going to know how to train and hire for it?
I think there's another, and this is just me talking completely out of my rear, is I think a lot of people want credit for their life they've had in the past. They want credit for, I built this thing and now I've got this new thing, so therefore all that goodwill should carry over. And the reality is, no.
We're back at square one.
You're back at -20 or whatever it is, because you got to start over.
Yeah.
You're not even at square one, because you got to single family. You got to make the foundation. You got to dig the land out to build a foundation.
Yeah, and I think real estate in particular is so vast.
Yeah.
That what people don't realize when they're building wholesale companies, because really, let's be honest, the only way you can massively scale the way most people are promoting on social media is really wholesaling an assignment, because of the quick turn, right?
Yeah.
Everyone else who has built off of maybe fixing and flipping or whatever has taken years to build, and everybody wants it super quick like that. I think.
Well, it's funny because it's funny that you brought up the super quickness, and this is another element of being an entrepreneur and relying on your network. I was on the phone with Ron Carlson I think less than a week ago.
He's a smart man.
Yeah, he's coming on. He's coming on this tomorrow.
That's awesome. He's
Anyway,
knowledgeable.
or maybe, and I might just record it and release it Thursday. Whatever. He's coming in this week, and I'm calling him, and I'm like, hey, by the way, I have an idea for a new event, and this is not the event I put out there, but the idea for the event was basically going, okay, it's the same thing where you've got the people that are looking for deals and the people that have the deals, but if you have a deal, like, let's put it on the big board and do almost like an auction house type thing where, and again, I know that's not original. People have done that in the past, but really go like send it all the deals that we have in the hopper to all the lenders and have the lenders kind of go through and be like, I'd lend on that one. I'd lend on this one. Lend this. So once 123 Main Street is on the board, like it'll also say, by the way, Easy Street Capital, Noble Mortgage, Investmark Mortgage, they've all approved to lend on this one.
That's a cool idea.
And then boom, all the people are like, I'll take it.
But do you think those lenders though are going to care who is actually managing that deal?
Well, absolutely.
Because that's a big part of it.
But here's where Ron stepped in and said, that's a great idea. But, and this is where the networking and actually knowing and listening is huge, is because he said, that's a great idea. But the problem is, because the quick turnaround of wholesaling, by the time you get everything ready to go, that deal might have already sold.
That's true.
So what's the point of doing all that work?
That's true. So kind of to circle around, and the point is that when there's so many ways you can do real estate like that, you came up with a creative alternative, and yes, we have to think through these things and whatnot. And I don't think you're ever starting from square one if you've built something before and you're trying to do something new, but you are obviously bringing over your contacts and possibly a lot of hard lessons learned and other things.
Well, I mean, think of it this way, like this podcast, this Facebook, this YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, like Propelio, we grew it to 10,000 on Facebook, 10,000 on YouTube, and it'll probably still continue to grow to gajillions. But like on here, it's like, hey, Ryan Harper, how many you got? I don't know, 2?
So you feel like you're kind of starting over.
Well, but not in a negative way, because I've never had expectations. I've always been like, put it out there. If they enjoy it, if people enjoy it, great. If no one likes it, or it's not that no one's like, if no one's watching, stay consistent, and then if you feel that you're doing a good product, eventually people come about. So the same thing for like Atlas, like, and I know you have a ton of business, so that's not what I'm maybe a lesson you're going for. But if you know you're doing a good product and you're doing kick-ass things, to me, it's if they build it, they will come type of situation. And I know that's not the safest way to look at it. Maybe that's just me being optimistic AF.
I think that you have to look at it all in stages. So we're both probably in a similar stage in our new ventures. Mm-hmm. And you're right. We have to do, I think Grant said this to me recently. He was
I think you're actually making money.
Anyway, it doesn't feel like, anyway, we can talk about that in a second. But my point is that we're in the phase of proof of concept.
Right.
And everybody has to go through a proof of concept stage, whether you're starting wholesaling or doing anything, is that you have to have the knowledge, and you have to be kind of know yourself well enough to know where you're going and perform. That's what we say when we say take action. Now, any entrepreneur is going to reach multiple ceilings in their career if they're doing it right. Because you're always going to have to reinvent yourself. Elizabeth Navarrete's queen about explaining this on how to reinvent yourself.
Well, that was our first interview like 2 years ago.
It's a really, she's, has a lot of experience, and she's right. And I've had to reinvent myself so many times in just the last 4 years that it's crazy to me. And Daniel said it on stage at the Propelio at DFW. He said, you have to die to yourself 5 to 10 times to get to this higher level. I don't think people understand how much you have to transform.
Right.
And not just your business, right? So what's working for you in this first phase isn't going to work for you when you have proved the concept and now you've got the business and you're like, what do they say? I've created a lion and now I have to keep it from eating me. Well, you have to change.
And the thing is though, like, I totally understand that, totally agree with that. Cause like even the first week of doing like just this, I was doing it myself and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like the only way this is going to do something is if I invest in it. And so I'm like, hey, Tommy, can you hook me up and can I pay you like 2 pennies, 2 pence?
Make sure he
How
pays
dare
you.
you?
Make sure he pays you. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's not like I'm not paying him. It's not a salary. It's like it's literally like if somebody offered him like 3 pennies, he'd be like, peace out. But anyway, but my point being is not to bring on Tommy on the show more, is just the fact that I want this to succeed. I have a vision of what this could be, but the only way that's going to do it if I have help. And by help right now, it's the production side, because you've seen it at Propelio where the main reason, well, not the main reason, but an additional reason of like, hey, Casey, you want to be a co-host with me, is because I was trying to manage behind the scenes while being on screen. So, just so, super secret, intel, I really was never paying attention.
Oh, you guys see what I have to go through?
But the point is now I want to be able to actually engage and actually have a real,
I hear you.
Because if it's a one-on-one or a one-on-two type of conversation, and it's not my vision for this is not, hey, what's the next nugget? What's the next tip? What's the next thing? For me, for this is like, let's have a good conversation and let's see where it goes. So the only way that happens is if I'm like completely immersed in the conversation with you. But my point of that is I knew I needed help quickly, even though I can't afford it and there's really no payoff for it. I invested in it now.
So you are taking a risk by doing that, but
absolutely.
You made a really good point, and you probably didn't even know you
Probably
made
not.
it. Is
that I rely on you too much?
well, that's a given. But you did get me a notebook to manage.
I did.
So we're good.
I did.
So 2 things are I think the word diligence in your craft. This is from a book, The Richest Man That Ever Lived. It's not The Richest Man in Babylon, but The Richest Man That Ever Lived. And it's about.
I just want to point out, I recommend that book all the time, and people give me so much shit because they're like, it's such a shitty book.
I think The Richest Man That Ever Lived is 1,000 times better. It's about King Solomon, and I like what they say in the book is that the principle of diligence in your work. It's not just like that term, diligence in your craft and your work, is being present and being focused and diligent on the almost like it's not just the work that's in it. It's about the intention behind the work and like the roadmap of what you're creating for your work, like the purpose of your work, to be diligent and consistent in what you're doing for your purpose. Now that sounds really elusive, but my point is that there's 2 ways people hire. There's 1 to help them with the busy work. And then there's 2 to allow them the time to put into thinking about their business and being diligently present with their clients or whoever they need to be. Like, for example, I need to be out talking to my clients and building business versus running transactions.
Well, one thing I told Daniel a way back, and he credits this a lot, is because working with Daniel, he was always, he always felt guilty, like not working.
Yeah.
And what I told him was, listen, who are the hardest working people you know? They're roofers, they're foundation guys, they're contractors, they're service industry level guys. And they're working their ass off. They're working 14-hour days in the heat. They're sweating their butt off. How much money do they make? Versus the CEOs, the Steve Jobs, the Microsoft dude, all these guys who work with their brain. Now, if you can learn to just realize that working with your brain is so much harder than working with your muscles, then you'll be okay. And I think that analogy clicked with him, because ever since then he never really hopefully he didn't feel guilty about not working.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important that we distinguish and know. I think I totally agree with you. I think that we don't put enough emphasis. I think I read somewhere that they said that if you're a visionary and that's your actual role and profile,
right,
and that's not everybody, but it is a lot of us, you should be spending a majority of your time. Warren Buffett, all he does is sit in his office and literally read all day long. He's had the same employees for decades.
That's the job you want.
That's his job. That would be a dream job. But he knows how to make decisions because he spends time doing the work that makes sense to him and thinking through things
Right.
where other people can't think like he does. So you have to put yourself in that position where you can think through your problems. If you're not thinking through your problems, you're going to be caught in that hamster wheel until you die, and you're
Right.
going to see it fail. That's the finite game. So I don't think it's just like we always say, delegate, 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 but you can't delegate until you know yourself. You can't delegate until you know your vision, and you can't delegate until you know what your proof of concept is.
But also you have to enjoy it, at least in my opinion.
You should. And I actually really enjoy it right now. Like I love.
Do you?
I do. I'm tired, but I love it because I really am
Let's
building
look at the
something
text
that's
messages of how you hate life right now.
mine. I
or
actually
something.
don't do that.
I know.
I'm really grateful for it. And I've been waking up every morning incredibly grateful for the busy and the opportunity because I literally have so much business. I can't even, I'm like up ready to go because I'm so excited to get it done.
I was thinking about this morning. It's like, it's a different story to wake up for yourself versus waking up as an employee. Like I didn't wake up at 5 a.m., but I woke up at 8 a.m. and normally snooze kind of like, but I was up, I was in the shower. I was like, woo.
Yeah.
Get to talk
Got a
to
little pep in your
Casey.
step now.
Get to talk to Lana. Woohoo! No, but I was up here till like 12 midnight, so
Yeah.
like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I only got like 4 hours of sleep. So the difference being is like if you get to wake up for yourself versus waking up as an employee, it's a totally different ballgame.
And not every day is like that. Like I know we kind of put it out there that the entrepreneur is always happy and motivated and all these
Well,
things.
that's the whole basis of this conversation.
And I agree with you. Most days it is like that. And even though like I would wake up with anxiety so much because I didn't know how to handle my problems. Now I have a lot of tools thanks to things like Harper and
Right.
just my experience growing some stuff, in the help of Propelio, that I now, when I have a problem, I know the steps I take to fix it. And so I don't feel so burdened by it.
Well, I think my biggest tip for being an entrepreneur, at least at this current phase, is denial. Denial that I'm broke, denial that there's no money.
It's not denial. You're just putting your head down and planting the seeds.
It's acceptance and planting seeds. Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I think that like most of the time I've got my head down and I'm planting seeds. Every day I'm planting my seeds, and I know that that maybe the money and all of that stuff is going to be a lag goal. But right now, for me, the fruit is in the journey. That sounds super cheesy, but I really get to build something that is my brain. Like I'm doing things differently, and that's rewarding for me because I've been able to see results. And so that's why I like to get up in the morning. Plus, it feeds my family. So I am in control of that now. I am very tired, and I would
Right.
love a
Clearly.
little bit of a break.
I'm kidding. First of all, I just want to say any digs that you've
really
heard
means them.
that I've given to Casey, I adore Casey, and she knows it.
Yeah, so I think that I always tell people, go ahead and put your head down and put in the 15-hour days.
Yeah.
And don't let anybody tell you differently, but do not put in those 15-hour days in vain. Put them in to build so that you can get out. Like you shouldn't be doing that
I
for
think
too long.
The word is intentional. Be intentional.
Yeah, exactly. And
know?
have diligence in the tasks that you're doing and why you're doing them. Like I caught myself today trying to answer and shoot an email, and all I had to do was pick up my phone for my assistant and say, "Hey, can you handle this?" And I just didn't do it. And I catch myself doing that frequently. Those are the moments where I have to let go. But I think control is a hard thing for people. And I think if you aren't ready to give control, then you might not understand your process well enough yet.
Right.
And maybe you're trying to figure it out, and that's okay. Just be honest with yourself. So kind of a full circle back to your original question, which is how do you know when to delegate and hire? When you know that position well enough.
Well, that, and then once you have, I think a big mistake that I've made in the past, I've seen other people I've worked with make in the past, is hiring without really knowing the full scope of what you're hiring or why you're hiring.
Exactly.
And not even having a training program. So like even with the notes thing I'm doing, it's like, hey, you want to work? Okay, cool. What's the training?
Just jump in.
Just go for it.
Yeah.
But the reality is if I just barreled down and really developed a full-on training program, I wouldn't have to hire anybody. I could then go to like Elizabeth and her call center and be like, hey, and that is kind of what I'm working on. By working on it in my brain, I haven't really done work yet.
As Gary says, you're doing nobody justice by keeping it in your brain.
I
Put it on
know.
paper.
But I'm getting there. But the speak it into reality.
Yeah.
But anyway, is if I can just build out a fully engrossed training program for what I want to be done, instead of hiring commission people that will take like hundreds of thousands of potential dollars, millions of dollars out of my bank account. Hey, here's this $10 an hour person that could probably do the job just as good.
Well, the flip side to that is that you might pay more to get started and get going to, because if you hire somebody worth more, here's the flip side to this. I know we always want to hire really, really cheap, but the flip side is hiring someone that's maybe good. And yes, you give away a little bit more. Like when we got started in real estate, we gave away a lot of money because we didn't have as much knowledge. And so we partnered for that.
Yeah.
And then we got to see the process, and then we were able to replicate it how we wanted. But I think maybe you need to do that until you get on your feet and know it better. Because as I said, I think that you need to know the position before you hire, but there's the other side to that too, is maybe you don't need to know all the details. You do need to hire someone that knows the details and can manage and can take over.
Right.
That's different.
Well, and that's the thing and that's where I'm in my brain going, okay, I could spend money now on people like $10 an hour, $12 an hour people that could be just as good. Or if I have that same training program and apply it to killers who are completely commission only, yeah, you're giving up more, but just the sheer amount of volume, potential volume.
And less oversight, probably.
Less oversight. Because again, it goes back to that, are you working for somebody, or are you working with somebody? Are you waking up to make your own money or whatever? So, because if you're a commission only, you're basically an entrepreneur. Yeah, you don't own the company, but you're only making money if you kick ass.
And there's some contractors make more money than some of the CEOs at the end of the day. And obviously that's not ideal, but my point is that I think that too many people want to hire everyone under them when you could partner with people that are really good in their craft already without having to train them and do the step-by-step guide. I'm kind of at that crossroads for my business too. It's like, at what point am I hiring people to train them to do the job? And at what point do I need a bigger driver who has more knowledge that can just kind of take it off of my plate and be like, I can handle these files, you go get more business, and let's figure out how to build this, workflow. So I think that you need to really ask yourself what you want, because those are two completely different processes. Now, I have one assistant who builds processes with me. So she documents as we go. So
does she because Tyler's the same way. My Tyler, my best friend, I've known him for like 20 years. With him, he's always on to me about, because he needs, like, if I wanted to move this phone from here to here, he'd be like, okay,
step-by-step guide.
First, he was like, you need to clamp your hand, lift up 30 degrees, move over, da, 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 da. Thank you, Tommy. That's been bugging me the whole time. I had a painting over there that wasn't level. Anyway, but Tyler's like that, where it's like, for me, a simple here to here, and he needs 1,000-page process to get there. But that's just how his brain works.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the type of person I need to ride shotgun, because I'll just build it, but I won't know how it got built.
Exactly. And so that's a weak spot of mine too, is I can take the time to focus, but if I'm focusing on those details, I can't actually run, my transaction. So that's definitely something that people need to consider when they are hiring. It's like, like right now, my assistant, I could literally say, hey, we need to figure out how to document this process. The next day, I literally had 10 documents in my files that said for approval. And I said, however you do this, I want you to document it, and then we're going to review and perfect it.
What's her name?
I'm not giving her away. I told her she could never leave me. She's been with me for a little over 6 months, and man, she's incredible. And so I've been able to, and she is a VA.
Yeah.
But she has learned paperwork like crazy fast. And so that took a huge chunk off my plate, and I've been able to honestly, quadruple my business with her alone.
But in quadrupling your business comes much more stressors. So for you personally, where's the next thing that you should or can or are thinking about offloading?
So, I mean, truthfully, managing the transactions. Like I need another me.
Isn't that the entire job?
No, I got to build the business. Okay. I got to work on the business. So like, I think I'm really good because of our network and how we're connected. And honestly, all my business has been word of mouth, which I'm so grateful for, just because of the platform Propelio and just because we network a lot. And I'd like to keep it that way and kind of keep it in the family and not have to put a whole division of marketing in place or advertising. So the next step for me is really not being in the day-to-day transactions, but I do the high-level issues and problems that I'm solving so that it gets pushed to me. But the everyday stuff that's pretty much clockwork is all taken care of. Like there's timelines that everybody can follow. And then I just review and do the harder stuff until I can get somebody in place who knows it well enough to be able to handle it.
So are you using your VA to kind of document what you're doing? So therefore, when you do bring somebody on, it's a little bit easier onboarding?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're documenting what the best workflow is with our team because now we've changed. Like most transaction coordinators are retired realtors who are seriously sitting. No, they're actually very nice and very good, but they really can only handle so much. Even if people are hiring in-house, they're able to handle maybe, I've heard most of my larger clients say that their TCs get overloaded at 15 to 20. Now, we realized we have to rethink how the process is and the workflow in order to have people so devoted to parts of that transaction that nothing gets dropped and we can handle 3 times that amount as a team. And then, basically being able to replicate that. So all of that is work I've put in to my business on the backside. And now we're just playing with it and experimenting with that workflow so that we can hire correctly. And then we can just say, here's how it happens. It gets handed off to you at this point. Here's your checklists. Then you notify this person. It gets handed off or however, we end up doing it.
So if typical TCs, transaction coordinators are doing like at 15 is their cutoff, 15 a month or 15 at a time?
I would say, well, actually, if you're closing a certain amount of deals, your amount of actives is a lot more. Like that's just the nature. I find most healthy businesses have about a 20 to 30% fall through. If you're good.
When you say businesses, you mean the transaction coordinator businesses?
No. I mean investors.
Okay.
Or even realtors with high volume.
Got it.
You're going to have about a 20, ideally below 20%, if you're good and organized, a fall off rate, terminations, fall throughs, things like that.
One thing I wanted to bring up with you is I know when you were first starting, you're like, hey, I'm really good at this. I think I can help people. Let's start a business. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, hey, if I can get a couple of deals, it's great. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I have like 50. Now what? And it was just,
yeah.
Did the overflow of work, did that excite you or did that scare the shit out of you?
I was excited and scared. I think anybody I think it's healthy to be scared and fearful because it means you have a challenge in front of you to solve.
Right.
And I realized I was trying to figure out what my cap was. I was talking to my husband and I said, I want to figure out how many I can handle without feeling like I'm not staying on top of it. Like, am I being proactive or reactive? And I found out that I thought my cap was about 40 to 50. Mm-hmm. It turns out with my help, I'm managing 80 and we're closing pretty well. So
do you think if you were able to find another VA that's similar to what you have now, could you scale up, or is the stopgap the person that's going to take over what you're doing?
Yeah, I think title, like no deal is the same, not a single one.
Right.
So you have to have somebody that can think critically about them and know, because you can only have so many checklists in place before you start to see variations. And then you're like, well, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I need somebody that has drive and independence and knows it well enough to think about it. So without breaking down my personal business and like how we're hiring.
I'd rather talk about your personal issues, but go ahead.
We can do that too. My point is simply that when you are building your business, you have to be in that hot seat to know what your capacities are and then figure out a solution to get past that ceiling. And that's what we're doing. So we're kind of like pushing up the boundaries and then saying, okay, well, where is it that we're dropping it? Is it a part of the process? Is it that I have too many problem files? Is it the type of clients I have? Is it the fact that I'm only working with investors that have crazy title issues? That's what we have to figure out. So if you're at any point in your business, and I think it's really hard for wholesaling because you have to manage acquisitions, dispositions, the transaction, like you have 4 mini companies kind of involved in the entire process. And everyone's all trying to scale. And I'm like, y'all haven't even mastered like half of those. So I think that you have to figure out what your capacity is going to be. And then you have to say, okay, well, here's our bottleneck and here's our problem. And then you can figure that out. And it's almost like one little tweak opens that faucet.
Well, and I think that's one thing that Gary Harper brings up a lot is and I'm a firm believer, and maybe I'm just it's my thoughts. I'm giving it to them. I don't know, but the minor tweaks versus wholesale change. Like I'm a big believer. If you know you're going the right direction, don't 90 degrees, don't 180 degrees. Just take a half a degree turn and do a minor tweak to see what happens.
And sometimes that's the biggest step you'll take in your business is that super minor tweak.
Right. Versus like, no, change it all.
Yeah. And I see far too many people do that. And like, I'm guilty of this as well. Like, you know, we scrapped almost all of our marketing when we found a problem with it. And now it's like, okay, well, we kind of realized we were heading in a direction that wasn't right. It didn't fit our vision. So we kind of just tore down the house. But that was right for us to make that move because we were trying to follow a blueprint of everyone else out there and it just didn't fit us. So then we realized we're thinking about how we're approaching what we're building incorrectly. We're trying to just follow these blueprints. Everyone says hire acquisition and hire this, but my husband's really good at acquisitions, whereas somebody else might not be so good and they do need that seat. But my point is that everybody is different, and to follow that same blueprint is never going to work.
Well, you brought up a second ago about how you should be, working on this and then you work on that. Should you focus on a singular part of your business, or when you're having these meetings with your upper leadership, should you go, okay, here are the 5 things that are in our business. You've got the marketing, you've got the sales, you've got the operations, you've got blah, 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 blah. Should you be tweaking every single one, or should you say, okay, let's just tweak this one thing in this one segment? Or should you like to me, it's like it's a rising tide where you need to be doing everything at once. I don't know if that's right or wrong. Like, where's your opinion on that?
I don't know either. I think it depends on the type of person you are.
Right.
I've seen very successful people build very steadily and slowly, and they are a lot more stable because they've built such a strong foundation versus people who are building these house of cards. Because it's working for now, but a market shift or anything are you really a visionary? Like, are you really thinking about your foundations and your long term and what could happen and all those kinds of things? So I think the question really should be, where are you going? And I do believe that you should stack. I think you should perfect the most basic thing that has to come first, get it right, add. Get it right and add.
And personally, I have worked in situations years ago, nothing current or anything like that, where I felt like I was and this is just my personal feelings. This is not fact, but like, I felt like I was the ultimate foundation of everything. But because I was a strong foundation, the owner was just like, oh, here. So
giving you more and more?
Just more and more stuff. So the way my brain processed that situation is I literally felt like, because when you hear the word foundation, what does your brain imagine?
A foundation.
Like concrete, like
yeah,
steel
like I would
rods
say
in
like
the ground?
a slab of
Right.
concrete.
So the foundation I'm talking about is I literally felt like I was a waiter holding a big ass tray with a bunch of like cards, like stacked up in a big old thing. And at any point in time, let's put another card, and all of a sudden it just all comes crashing down on me.
I think a lot of people are in this position and they don't know it. I mean, we were. Honestly, I would agree with you. And so that's a leadership thing at the end of the day. And if you are leadership, that's on you. Is you want to grow. This is the problem I have with most people these days. It's like, gotta scale, gotta grow. It's like growth for the sake of growth, but for what purpose and for what end? Like, I think anybody that has growth as their vision is a house of cards. I think anybody that's saying to grow, to be the best, is all so vague.
Right.
That's the finite game. Are you looking to really, you're going to ebb and flow about being on the top and being the best, but those are the people that are like long sustaining people, is because they're realizing that they're kind of tweaking the processes in the business, and they're trying to figure out what works and what will work through many different scenarios. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that's a big problem, especially with all of these overnight entrepreneurs in real estate. And this is why my message is to most people: are you really wanting to build a wheel at all? Like, are you reinventing the wheel? Are you just copying the wheel manuscript? And do you even need to build a new one?
Well,
I don't know why.
That's why, like, some of the most successful like real estate investors are, and I don't mean this is going to sound bad, are really stupid. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I guess that is kind of a mean way to just say, hey, you're stupid. No, but what I mean by that is because I think the smart ones want to reinvent it. They want to put their stamp on it. They want to make it their own. Whereas let me finish. Whereas the people that would just take action and just, take that and just apply it, they ultimately succeed in a lot of ways. Whereas some people that are like, who are ultimately really, really smart and they want to dabble and they want to change and they want to, it's like a great example. I used to work with a gentleman named Tim Harridge, and he was, used to train a ton of people, do a lot of free education, do meetups, etc. And I remember on a bus tour, like he literally gave away his postcard at the time because back then direct mail was really successful, and I'm sure it still is successful to some people now. But a couple months later, somebody came up to me or came up to Tim actually and was like, I'm having really difficulties with my mail campaigns. I dropped whatever. And he's like, well, let me see your postcard that you sent out. And they handed it to him. He's like, well, this is not the same postcard. They're like, well, I wanted to tweak it. I want to put my stamp. He's like, that's not. I gave you what works, and you changed it, and you're asking me why it's not working. It's not working because it's not what I gave you. Mm-hmm. So I guess my point there is going back to where another theme of 2020 for me is 99.99% of people are stupid. And if you just take the tools that are already proven and run with it versus creating a new wheel.
I have a lot of mixed feelings about that.
One
is, again, if you're
most
trying
people
to follow,
aren't stupid?
Well, I don't know if it's that they're stupid or that we're stupid. It's just that
I know that's a harsh word, whatever, but you know what I mean.
We're learning,
yeah,
and it's a matter of perspective that we don't have yet. And so you have to be humble in not having that perspective or experience when you're starting. And B, I don't necessarily think that you should follow the exact same thing. Now, marketing and following marketing strategies is one thing.
And let me just disclaimer before I let you finish is this was like 7 years ago.
Got it. Understood.
So therefore postcards 7 years ago, there wasn't the social media blitz of there's 1,000 million investors out there.
Yeah,
anyway,
but mailing as well is coming back. Your return rates on mail are, marketing is a cycle depending on what people are doing and not doing.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is that you want to change things up and do it. So there's people that want to change it just because they think it's better without having the knowledge. And that is possibly I don't like the word stupid, but it's a naivety that I don't think that they're aware of. That's one thing. If you're going to go after a strategy and something works, try it. If it's not working, then maybe seek alternatives. But I also don't believe that you should follow the exact blueprint, because what if you're in a completely different market? So that's one thing. But I wanted to say something to you about the whole inventing the wheels and stuff, because I think people aren't honest with themselves if they're coming from a place of ego or humility, in that, are you wanting to change something because of your ego, that you just think it could be better? And what are you even basing that off of? Like, what are you basing that on?
Right.
Or do you really see a hole in the market or a niche or something that could be fulfilled by the way you're thinking about doing something? And do you think that other people could benefit from that? And that is where I think you see the successful and the non-successful. I think anybody operating from an ego place is ultimately going to have a much harder time than anyone else.
Well, it goes back to, first of all, I agree that stupid is a harsh. I don't really mean stupid.
No disclaimers needed.
I just mean that people will just take action versus trying to reinvent it. That's what I was getting at.
Sure. And I think there's nothing wrong with taking action, but don't just take action. Like, again,
have a roadmap.
Yeah. To prove concept is one thing to take action. We took action and then we pulled back and we're like, okay, now we have this first ceiling. We know it works and we know we're good at this. Now what's the next phase? It's creating that roadmap and the processes and what are we really building? And I think it took us probably about 6 months to get our vision really clear, because it was so much noise from social media and from speeches and all these things. And I just wasn't connecting with a lot of these whys, and you have to have your why. Well, what's wrong with figuring out your why as you go? Like, right. I don't really identify with that.
The first time I was in one of those conversations, I was with Molly Ladner, and we were at, we were in Phoenix with Corey Thompson. It was Corey Thompson that said it was a Meltdown of the Desert, Colby K event. And I'm sitting there with Sean Whalen, who had no clue who he was at the time. And literally it was like a 7-8 minute beat down. And I don't mean beat down, but like, what's your why? Like, or I'm like, I make money. Why? And I don't mean it to be funny, but it was just like, I don't know. He's like, that's the answer. And I'm like,
and that's an okay answer.
And I'm like, people pay you for this? He's like, yeah. But the reality is most.
That's right. $5 for you.
This throws me off every
Perfect timing on that one, Tommy. No, but that's the point is like, you know, everybody needs a coach, everybody needs a mentor, and people don't have a clue what they really want. But going back to the roadmap thing is, yes, you need to have a roadmap before you start. So like even with this mixer that I'm doing on the 20th, like I have a clear vision in my head of what I want it to be. I'm fully aware that in Dallas-Fort Worth that there's literally an event every single night, and there's mixers and networking and whatever. But also, I think I'm okay at events as well, putting them together and getting them promoted and getting people to come out. But I have a vision of what that could be and what it should be and what it is going to be versus the blueprint that's already out there. So will it fail? I don't know. Will it fail? Probably not. Because I'm doing it at such a bare bones, super relaxed setting that it's really not that much work to put onto it. If I can get just like literally, if I get 5 or 6 sponsors, 10 sponsors, that pays for it, and it's a wash. And if I get to, like I said, stay relevant and get in front of people, and say, hey, by the way, bring me your deals, or by the way, you want to do be that connector guy.
I think that with one note about failure, and I hope this doesn't sound too cheesy at the end of the day, but I think so many people are fearful of doing anything because it's not going to come out the way they think. And I think the most successful people, I think a lot, sorry about that, are the ones that are like, well, I'm going to have a decision at the end of this either way. Either I know what's working, or I know what's not, or I know that I have to head a different direction because of how the response was on this. And that's going to be your true visionary. Your true leaders are going to be the ones that are like, hey, I'm going to find an answer, whether it's this doesn't work or this works. And that is progress versus it just being,
well, there's a million memes out there that are all moto about, you know, you can, whether you work for yourself, you work for somebody or for somebody else, life is going to be hard. So choose your hard or whatever. I saw that this morning and I'm just like, vomit. But it is true.
Some days I miss being an employee. It's not that hard. It is hard if your brain's not being challenged.
For me, being an employee is really hard for me, only because I don't have an employee mindset. And what I mean by that is every time in the past 10 years I've worked for somebody, I literally go in with the mentality that I'm an owner or I'm a partner. And I put in 60, 80 hours, 100 hours a week. And I grind and I work my ass off to the bone. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what does that get me?
You know, I think you probably suffered from the same thing I did when I was in that kind of mindset, was stifling of creativity or possibly having the freedom to express ideas. I think the best job I've ever had being an employee for somebody was when I was a media analyst in Zurich. And I remember my mentor at the time gave me immense amounts of freedom to play with data, create reports, and like I had so much creative freedom. The only reason I left that job is because I had personal life circumstances that changed, and the commuting to Zurich and all over the world got a little intense for a while. My hair was falling out, and it was a stressful job, but I had creative freedom and I was satisfied. I think if you're the type of person who it does have a true entrepreneurial spirit in the real sense that you should probably put your brain power into creativity and changing the landscape of how we do things, you are going to feel trapped if you don't have a creative outlet.
Well, that's what I loved about working with Daniel and Propelio is I did have the creative freedom. Mm-hmm. Like basically Propelio TV as it developed to be was basically my baby. Yes, Daniel had the vision of having a studio, but other than that, the actual force to create like the Propelio TV and have all those shows, that was me. The event itself literally came from the Propelio event as we know it came from a conversation between Daniel, Corey, and myself. And the reason being is because we were trying to break into San Antonio, and we reached out to the largest RIA down there. I don't know if this is a public, but I don't care. I'll put it out there. I reached out to a gentleman who's a lawyer down in San Antonio who runs the largest RIA in San Antonio, and was like, "Hey, we would love to, B2B do some business with you. How can we work together?" And his response was a very curt, very coarse, sponsor my event. And it's like at least say hi, at least like have a phone call. But it literally was like, give me money. And that's how he read it. And then Daniel's like, well, you used to do events for you did you created that DFW Investors event, which at the time was the largest event in DFW for real estate. And I was like, you want to create one in San Antonio? I was like, all right. So we went down there and we literally had an event. I think you and Jason came out to it, that first one in
that was
February,
that one.
February 2018. Okay. And shout out to Jason Dehle, who's in the Cinderella at the that theater. What was it? What theater was that?
I don't remember the theater.
Anyway, that's all your husband could talk about. I've been to this theater before. In second grade, I was in Cinderella play.
Yes, he is from San Antonio.
Anyway, but my point being is like, so we went in there and we just dominated and we killed it. But like the Propelio event, basically, I had complete carte blanche, creative freedom to do whatever I want to do with it.
Yeah.
So I loved it.
Yeah, and that's really great, and I think that's why you were so successful there, and why, so my point is that any of you out there who are feeling trapped, or even as an entrepreneur feeling trapped, it's probably because you're not giving enough time to your creativity, or that mind, that space that you thrive in on thinking, creating, and doing it differently, because you're either A, trapped in all of the busy work that you're doing, or B, you don't know where you're going, or C, you just don't want to let go of anything and you're just kind of stuck here. And maybe your reasons for doing it are incorrect. And not that like you said, like I still don't fully know my why or my vision. I do know that I'm really good at this and I have a solution for a lot of people. And it's allowed me the creativity to move people and things around to make it work. And that feeds me. And that's good for me, and I'm okay there, and I'm happier there than doing real estate, to be honest. I'm happier. I hate flipping. I hate it.
Before I make my next point, I do want to clarify, because Jason, your husband just said he wanted to make sure everybody knows that he did have a speaking line. Anyway,
what was it?
Yeah, what was the line, Jason? If it's so, anyway, but I think that's the dark secret about real estate investing, single family investing, is most people that have been doing it for over 3 years in the single family space, if they're just, and I'm not talking about like Ron Carlson who are doing a gajillion houses at one time, but most people who are doing the 5 to 10 wholesales a month, or doing a couple of flips here and there, in about 3 to 5 years, you have burnout and you hate houses, because it's not like HGTV where, oh, I'm going to make this eggshell and I'm going to do this. It's like, that's cool for the camera. But it gets to the point where it's like you use eggshell because you have 1,000 gallons stored in your warehouse. You don't care anymore, because the visual creativity of making that house is not there. And if it is there, you're probably not making money because you're more worried about the hobby aspect versus the business aspect. Mm-hmm. So that's the deep dark secret. Is anybody's been in it, or most people I know, they hate walking houses. Mm-hmm. Like TJ, he was on like last week. It was something he says all the time. He's like, I want to do anything but go in houses. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see him so happy, not evicting somebody on Facebook Live, but he was so giddy because he had 200 people watching, because he wants to do the media stuff. He wants to do the guru thing. And it's because it's something new. But I don't know what my point there is, other than just,
I think it's just burnout and kind of not knowing. So that's the thing too. People are going to burn out because they're trying to create a business where they're literally running 5 businesses within a business. Like flipping houses and wholesaling are 2 different businesses. Right. Yeah, your marketing process might be the same, but the rest of it isn't. And so I don't know if people are as aware, and they think it has to look like that. Like even wholesaling, like, my goodness, I don't know. I don't want a wholesaling company. I've never wanted one. Like I've never wanted to do that. That's just never been on my radar. I do like real estate, but I
like the idea of real estate. I like the freedom that everybody likes. Oh, I like the freedom of it.
What is the freedom in it unless you have the net income from it.
The
that
freedom
takes,
is being able to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But I
but
understand
you
your
can't
point.
when you have this business that you have to run to.
Right. But the idea that I like is the people that I'm surrounded by over here, which is there's nobody. So this is a working environment. There's like, I think 3 or 4 people who office out of here. None of them are here because they don't want to be today. And my point being to that is the freedom of, because they're doing much larger deals, because they're doing much bigger things. If they want to chill today, they chill. You know?
Yes, but that's probably took them a long time to get there.
Of course.
So when you're building your business, you have to, like, we talk, this whole show is what you wish you knew. Like,
right. And then we haven't talked
you
about it at
know,
all.
well, I think we kind of have, because all of this, I really have only learned by going through it. So it's
Of
kind of
course, yeah.
hard to say, oh, I wish I knew this and this, because I probably wouldn't have taken a lot of the steps I did to find out.
Well, actually, this whole show, this is just me and you talking. We're not live at all.
We need to change the title.
There's nobody watching. I just haven't seen you in a while. And this is the only way I could get you in the room to like hang out.
That's probably true. See, now you messed up my thought again. I don't even remember now what I was saying, but the freedom aspect. So again, like, what do you want freedom for exactly? Like, I don't know why people want freedom to lay on a beach. I don't identify with that. Like, freedom to me is just the ability to do what I want when I want to do it. It doesn't necessarily mean not working.
To me, again, if freedom for me would be if I was doing 3 shows a day here, and it paid enough, or I made enough money to where I was, successful. And if I wanted to go to Phoenix to go visit Annie, what's up?
Oh, Annie.
Poor Annie.
I love her.
She's the bane of my inappropriate comments. I was waiting for him to push a button.
So I understand that's your version of freedom, and a lot of people might not have that version. And the point is, find it for yourself.
But the point I was making is like, to do 3 shows a day that's a lot of work. There's a lot of time. Tommy knows because we did it at Propelio. Just to do 1 show is it's not a pain in the ass, but it's work. There's the prep time to get everything ready. There's the time that you're doing it yourself, and then if you're doing it right, there's the time after where you're uploading the podcast, you're making clips, you're making art, you're doing this, and then there's the aspect where you're scheduling people to come in. So just hosting a YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever podcasty thing, there's work there. Even though it's just, hey, me and you sitting here and chatting, there's a lot of behind the scenes. Thus, investing in a Tommy, circle back to that, because as a solo entrepreneur, it sucks. And yes, I could do it. I have done it. But if you want quality, you need to scale up.
Or maybe you just really enjoy that aspect of your business. Like, I was talking with Nick with Lead Mining. He's a really cool guy. I was talking with him, and he kind of has given me some food for thought lately. I don't know if a lot of people know this about him. He runs a very successful business, and he is at the forefront of customer service. Like, he's answering phones, he's talking with people and his clients and his customers. And somebody even said that, like, he's the CEO of the company, and why is he doing that? And I'm like, and he was like, because I love it. I love that part of my business. And yet everyone's talking about here saying, you got to get out, you got to get out, you got to get out. But why? Like, if you really love that tiny little piece of your business, then do it. It doesn't matter your status. Be the person that you want to do, whatever gives you freedom and joy. And he's like the happiest person I know right now. Like, he loves what he's built, and he's enjoying having the frontline communication with people. Yet a lot, and I've surprisingly had several people make comments about Atlas being like, well, that's admin work. And I'm like, if you see it that way, maybe that's why a lot of admins are quitting all of these businesses and they're hiring me. I don't know.
Right.
But they're treating it like it's, oh, well, that's just paperwork and
beneath
stuff.
me.
Yeah, that it's beneath them. Where I'm like, well, I'm definitely not beneath it. To me, yeah, some of it can be quite tedious. And I think someone the other day said it's like adult babysitting sometimes, but I also solve a lot of problems. And that for me is super fun. I love being able to say, hey, we're clear. I got this taken care of because I was able to talk to a seller correctly, or I was able to ask the right question. To me, that's enjoyable. I see it as more than that. And that's fine. But it's a little insulting when they're like, oh, why are you doing that? You're a visionary. And I'm thinking, well, because it's bigger than that to me, and I am building a company to, like, that's different.
And I think there's a lesson there because I've been told in previous employment places where it's like, if you have an employee, have awareness of what they enjoy and what they
Absolutely.
Because it's been done to me several times where it's like, you don't need to be doing that. If you want to grow as a business person, you need to be able to move on. But what that person failed to realize is, you're asking me to kill my baby. You're asking me to literally let this thing that I created and cultivate and let it out into the wild. And if it fails, it fails.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, fuck that. Like, I've bled, sweat, and tears, worked 60, 80, 100 hours a week, whatever, to get this thing going. And you're asking me to just...
Are you saying if somebody says to step out of what you like to do?
Yeah, of what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
That's the point. I was like, is if you're going to be managing somebody, you need to really understand what people are enjoying or not. Mm-hmm. Because like for me, like, I'm not good at organizing and processing. So if you said, hey, Ryan, we need to get you out of organizing and processing, you think I'm going to fight that? I'm like, cool.
Yeah, it's an awareness of what you really like and don't like. This is a message I tell a lot of people. You want to know when it's time to hire? Figure out what you like and don't like. Like, you're not going to be able to hire until you know that. And it might take you sitting in every seat. I told Jason from the beginning, when we first started our business in real estate, I said, I want to sit in every single seat because I don't really know this business and I don't know what I like to do. And it turns out, I hated all of it. I'm just kidding. It turns out that the transactional management made me feel I was really good at that. And to me, it was the lifeblood of my business.
I think that's another drop I need to pull, Tommy, which is the notebook. What do you want? What do you want?
It's true.
You know?
People don't stop to ask themselves that. They all say, I want freedom. It's like, no, you're not answering the question. That is really vague. The question is, what brings you joy in your day to day? It's not I think everything that's documented is the beginning, really excited, motivational stage, or the results of the hard work. The middle, in between, people ask what keeps people going and how they built what they built. Like, you always see the guy on the Olympic stand getting the gold medal, but you don't see the hours that were put in behind it. That space is where you have to learn to like what you do.
Yeah, and then I'm always super annoyed by the moto entrepreneurs online that are like when Conor McGregor won his fight in 40 seconds, they're like, he didn't make $100 million for 40 seconds. He worked his 20 years to learn. It's like, I get it. We all get it.
A lot of people don't, though. A lot of people don't realize that the whole, like, you wonder how people got to where they are. It's because they found out what they enjoyed doing, and to go through that process every day was their glory.
Yeah.
That everything else is a lag result, and yeah, it's super short and momentary, but everyone only sees you sitting on the stand.
What's funny is I think the intention of this conversation starting out was to have the realities of business ownership. But I think what we've mainly gravitated to is just find out what you like doing and do it.
But I do wish I had known that a little bit better going in. I wish that, I kind of followed my husband into entrepreneurship because he is a true visionary.
I almost did a sexist comment.
But contain yourselves.
How dare you?
Exactly. There you go, Tony.
My point is, to keep this nice and good, is he had a really brilliant mind. And it turns out I was drawn to that because I am a visionary profile. I just never really knew that about myself because I didn't look like him, or I didn't look like other CEOs that I knew. Well, there's like 5 or 6 visionary profiles that all look different. If you had all like 6 different CEOs in these different profiles in front of you, they would look completely different. And if all of them tried to make a business together, you would probably all be sitting there and be like, well, we're all trying to fit the same seat, and we need integrators, and we need other managers and other people that are good at other things.
Random factoid, I think most CEOs are sociopaths.
I don't think that's true.
I think it is.
I don't think that's true at all.
It's a Tyler fact, so therefore it is fact.
There's quite a few out there. So maybe the ones that
I
make
should
the
call
news.
Tyler.
But anyway, please don't call Tyler. I don't think it's a sociopath thing. I do think that they're driven in a certain way, and they're restless in a way that they can see like 10 miles down the road, and a lot of us are like, I don't know what you're looking at. So it might seem a little crazy. Seriously. Come back to the podcast.
No, I'm listening. I have headphones.
And so, that's kind of how I see it is there's going to be different levels of visionary that have different profiles, and some of their traits are going to be a little bit further out than others. But at the end of the day, at the end of the day, I think they all have a role to fill in different types of industries. But I wish that I had known a little more about myself, because I am pretty good at everything. I'm like, but I don't do it. I'm like the jack of all trades, but I don't ever feel like I mastered anything.
Well, that's how I feel a lot too. I think that's one of the reasons you resonate so much with me is I do think you're funny. I do think you're awesome and cool, but the fact that in a lot of ways we can do anything, but we have nothing.
Like you and I could jump into a conversation with someone and totally make it work. Like I think I've noticed that about you, and I can adapt to almost any situation, and I've backpacked around the world by myself just figuring it out, and people always ask me, how could you do that? And I'm like, I don't know, I just figured it out. So I think we're like that.
And I enjoy that a lot. I enjoy that to a point, like, because I think some people are like, what do you do? What's your skills? I'm like, I get shit done. I don't know. Like,
But you know what's missing from that, or at least it was for me?
Processes?
No, I actually don't. I mean, that keeps me focused, but truly it was the fact that I was trying to fill the gaps for everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was never really in a place to thrive. Like, perfect analogy I can give you is I played competitive volleyball all through high school, club, everything. And I was so good at every position that they kept moving me around to be wherever they needed it. Well, there was one season where they kept me on the right side as defense and right hitter. Mm-hmm. And I made all-stars. My stats were incredible, and they just kept me there. And then they switched me again. And so I remember that year that I got to like hone in and perfect my skill. And I've always wanted it to be like that. Well, in entrepreneurship, you don't get that luxury because you're trying to run every seat, which is why Atlas is so like my baby, because I get to focus and do one thing really, really well. And that's just my personality.
So I have a similar story, and you're going to laugh when I bring it up. And
Was it cheerleading?
Yes, it is. So when I cheered at, basically anytime I cheered, like everybody else would have a stunt partner. Like you have a guy, you have a girl, and they get to just develop together where they're able to do these crazy skills together and do all these things. But like I was a big ass dude, as most of the guys were on the team, and they would, instead of having a partner, I would have 3 or 4 partners. Mm-hmm. and it wasn't like so in cheerleading you have I'm gonna get deep, guys,
please don't get too deep.
You have for females you have flyers and you have tumblers.
Yeah. So
flyers are literally like, they're smaller than this ET statue. And tumblers are thicker, muscular, like gymnastic-y type females. So they're more muscular. So in terms of weight, there's a difference. So if you have a flyer, you can literally throw them around like a rag doll doing crazy ass tricks. A tumbler, it takes a little bit more skill to do moderate to advanced stuff. You're never really able to get to that super elite stuff because it's hard. So I was never able to do the crazy cool stuff. Well, I could, I never got to show it off that much. At the same time though, I still have the ability to just pull that stuff out of my rear. Like a couple months ago, I was at a gym and hadn't done it in like 10 years and was able to pull something out of my ass. And mainly because for a large portion of my cheerleading career was because it's like, look, you have to make it work with somebody who typically doesn't do that position. Mm-hmm. And anyway, my whole point was that because I got excited about not being able to focus in on one thing.
It changes you. It makes you feel like you don't get that satisfaction of accomplishment or your own vision or your own work that you put into that one thing. And I don't think people realize how hard that is on you mentally as somebody like us that are kind of just, well, yeah, we can adapt and do things great, but the passion kind of gets lost when we don't get to put all of that effort in. So I always used to envy people who were like, well, I want to be a doctor, or I want to be the CEO, or like, I want to flip these houses. Like, it's so definitive. And to me, I'm just like, well, I don't know.
That's one thing I love about 2020 solo Ryan entrepreneur is I have 4 things, and I'll probably repeat this if you listen to these podcasts, watch these shows, like every other show I'm going to talk about it, because I've never really had a definitive course. I just kind of like go with the flow of what's going on. And I usually just, break down walls and do it. But for me, like right now, I'm doing the events thing for an immediate cash flow. Like do an event this Saturday with Elizabeth, probably make $1,000, $1,500 for it. Not a lot of money, but when in a world of, oh, you're unemployed and you need any dollar to feed yourself, boom, you got to do it. So I'm doing events for the immediate cash, but also for exposure, working on other people's events, doing my own events. That event I'm doing on the 20th, that's not for money. That's more for exposure / the deal making side. So, and that's another thing I'm working on is being that deal connector where it could be part of the deal. Cause Russ Keith, he called me. He's like, hey, I just, I wouldn't really tell people you're deal making and matchmaking because that's illegal and Trek is going to come after you. And I'm like, okay, well, semantics.
Just put him on blast.
No, he was, I'm not putting him on blast. He was looking out for me.
Yeah.
But he was just like, you got to be very careful how you say things. So I'm not brokering. I'm just being part of the deal.
Putting people in the same room.
Putting people in the same room. And if I get in on the deal, that's cool too. Anyway, so there's that aspect. So this 1 and 2. The third thing is the media stuff. This, I don't expect to make any money doing this for at least a year and a half. And at which point, then you throw in the affiliates. More of that, Tommy.
Everyone,
yes,
give Ryan a hug when you see
I know.
him.
No, but like the media stuff, like I'm working with other people doing their media stuff. I'm doing my own. Eventually get this to a place where you can rent it out. But I don't expect to make any money from doing this for at least a year to 18 months. And it's all from affiliate stuff. Like, by the way, if you are curious what that means, go check the comment section below and click on one of those links.
It's the Ryan Show.
Woohoo, make money. No, okay. So, but this is the most fun. It's the most fun, makes no money. The event stuff, it's the most work, but makes makes money now, but not significant amount. There's a ceiling on how much money you can make with events. The other thing I'm doing is the notes thing. That thing, I don't expect to make money until like maybe 6 months, but that has the potential to make the most money. So I have these definitive paths and these definitive timelines of when, of how much work it will take, but also how much money you can make doing it. And the whole reason I'm bringing that up is that there's in my head, at least in my head, there's clarity. And going back to Gary's, what you're talking about, Gary Harper, if it's not written down, it's worthless. But I'm getting there. But like, just for the simple fact that I have clarity of what I'm trying to do in my head, I'm like, it's freeing. And the amount of support I've had, like people, like I've had so many people like who are so happy for me that I'm a solo entrepreneur now, go for it. And they're very supportive. Yeah. And now it's just a matter of like, okay, how do I cash in all these favors people owe me?
Oh, stop. Stop it. I hate that. That's so awful.
Abundance with a cost, baby.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think that stuff's going to come to you, but I like the fact that I always tell people it's okay if like, get it down, like your vision. Like I have in my meeting board, I always have like an opportunities column where anything that comes to my mind, I just write it down. Because then I can look at it and say, does this match my vision? Is this on the same path or not? Then we can scrap it. But I'm constantly thinking through it. And it looks like you have been too. And so anybody out there who might not have that clarity and who might just be like, well, I don't know. I just know I'm an entrepreneur. Like you have to like write that stuff down. And it's funny because Jason wrote down an opportunity about 6 months ago. And now he's doing it. And he looked back at his board and he goes, that's so funny. I was thinking and heading that direction. I just didn't really know how to get there. And 6 months later, here he is.
What was that?
It was about just partnering and collaborating rather than build the wheel. We were trying to build the wheel ourselves and we just decided it really wasn't what we wanted.
I think an important thing there is listening to your network and like, because for me, even the deal making thing, and I brought this up yesterday, I believe, like I've always had a thought process for the past year of doing something like this with the intention of being that deal matchmaker, not broker, but being part of the deal of marrying people together and being part of the deal itself for structuring deals. Structuring deals is the right terminology. That's what I'm going to use from now on. But I forgot about that because once I was unemployed, my brain at least go into, oh shit, find money now mode. And again, talking to Ron, he was like, why don't you know everybody, why don't you just go into a deal structuring type of mode? And it's not like it was his idea, but it was him reminding me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh yeah, that was my whole intent of doing this in the first place. But that whole section of my brain was lost when it came to oh shit mode.
I cannot say enough how much our network has really like how close we all are in through the peaks and valleys. Like you get to be really close with each other and see things. And it was refreshing to hear some of the struggles of some of people that you see that look like they're doing really great. But at the end of the day, behind the curtain, we're all going through the same thing and not a lot of people talk about it. But my point is that when I was trying to figure out what my next move was and what I should do, I had so many people come up to me and say, well, hey, we actually noticed this, this, and this, and you'd be good at this. And to have that kind of encouragement when you can't see it and you're not super clear was the most rewarding thing ever.
So I think this is a good topic to end on because I know you got to get back to work. And so I think I do too. But it's being receptive of not necessarily criticism, but outside vision of tweaking, or I don't know how you would put that.
I think it's being open to be in humility, speaking to everyone around you that you don't have it all together. Because if you do, you're going to miss the opportunity for somebody to help you significantly, whether it be personally or in your business.
Right.
And being open to them telling you how you could fit in the space, because a lot of people are going to sit out there and say, you know what, actually, I really need somebody that can do that. Now that I think about it, no one's ever done that. Like if we don't talk and in humility say, hey, I just don't know my next move, but here's what I'm looking at, you're probably going to have a lot of opportunity thrown your way.
Well, the thing is, and the reason I bring that up, I think you brought it up first, but the reason I want to go into it is because like I joke a lot about, hey, getting those favors, but like I do want to help people. Like if there's a way to help people, and I get that sometimes it could come off as critical, but it's not. It's like, hey, by the way, man, I noticed this thing you're doing on this video I've been studying it the past 2 years. Have you tried doing this? And I would say a lot of people are receptive. Oh, thank you so much for pointing that out. But there has been people that are like, it's almost like they get offended and they get really defensive. And at the end of the day, I'm like, I could promise you I don't care. Use what I said or don't use it.
It's
I don't
because they're
care.
operating from their ego.
Well, that is.
I'm telling you can break down entrepreneurs into two categories. There's those that are driven by their ego and those that aren't. And you can see it. I've connected with certain people. Like there's a lot of people in this industry I really respect for what they've done, but their ego is so big. And like I said, it might not be outward in social media or whatnot, but it's how they operate. It's the choices they make in their business. It's what they lead with. It's who they connect with and who they're willing to do business with despite, maybe their personalities. And so I respect anyone who's made any kind of headway in their businesses, but they're like, you can see it a mile away. And I think that anybody operating from that place, it's fine. Just you put a stone in their shoe and you can walk away. No, I will not. I have a lot of respect for people. It doesn't necessarily mean I'll do business with them because I just don't want to align. Like I'm coming from a place of complete humility and wanting to build and grow. And that's why I'm so open about what I struggle with, because nobody was as open in the beginning. And it was frustrating because I went internally thinking nobody else was, and I was just doing something wrong.
So what is the biggest struggle that you currently have right now?
Oh gosh. Well, honestly,
be vulnerable, and if we can get a tear, that's the best.
I think I came out of my biggest struggle in the last 6 months mentally. I think the biggest struggle was not seeing the fruits of our efforts in our real estate business that we wanted because we realized it didn't align. I think it's a blessing, because it wasn't what we wanted, yet we were still working for it. And I'd say the biggest struggle I had was figuring out myself. Like that was the biggest struggle, going back and forth, like thinking, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to do? And not having that answer and not connecting with anything and just being like, I just don't know what I'm supposed to do. Should I go get a job? Should I just default back to that? Was a really painful process. And then now that I have a little clarity, now my biggest struggle is figuring out how to build a business, because this is my first one. I just don't I'm just learning as I go.
I will say this, like I hope to God obviously everybody hopes that they can pull something together, because if you do try to go the entrepreneur route, you've made a decision that you don't want to work for anybody. But you
can work with people.
Right. I love working with people, but the thing I've learned about myself the past couple of years is I hate working for people. Hate is not the right word. It's because I do get strong-headed about things, and I do have strong opinions about how things should be done, especially like if you give zero direction and I start doing it, I hate midstream tweaks that aren't my own. And I know that about myself. You know, it is what it is. But I really hate like full on changes while I've already halfway down the track.
And that's the fault of leadership as well, because if they didn't have a clear vision of how you should do it, and then they see it and they're like, well, we know how not to do it, and they start tweaking you. I understand the frustration, but I also think that there has to be humility in you and all of us. I
can't even spell the word.
In truly taking that direction, if you really want it to work, again,
absolutely, yeah.
that's what we battle every day, is our own egos with how we're doing things. And I don't know, like for me, like I get a little frustrated when someone tells me how to do my job too, but when I'm in control, you know, like when people say, oh, Casey, we really need to escalate this. Have you done this? I'm like, what makes you think I haven't sent 50 emails? You know,
so
like,
it goes back to like when doing events, when somebody's trying to help, it's like the joke I would tell Jay Lee and Travion, which is thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
But are you genuinely
No,
taking
it's a sarcastic, like, no shit. I thought about that 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago. Thank you.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough out there because a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes. They're only seeing certain things and then coming in and trying to tweak it. And I think you're right. There's a lot of lack of knowledge in terms of the details and behind the scenes of people doing it. That's why it's so important to be like, hey, listen, this is how I'm going to plan to do it. And if you have alternative views, please jump in or let me do it.
It's like even with this little podcast. Hey, I think it'd be better if you had better quality cameras. Thank you. I understand, but it's a process.
You know, everybody starts out like, what do they say? I think it's Brene Brown that says, write your shitty first draft. She says, like, anything that you do, she calls it a shitty first draft. And she says, just write it and then throw it away. Do the podcast and throw it away. Like, everybody's first podcasts look terrible, and we learn as we grow. And so
I'm not throwing away shit.
Well, don't throw it away. But, you know, my point is like, go ahead and start and try. And if it sucks, ball it up and throw it away. But at least you started, because that's people's biggest fear.
Right.
It's like, so do your shitty first draft, throw it away, and let's move forward.
Well, and again, I know we need to wrap up, but like for me, especially with this stuff, it's all about consistency and authenticity. Like putting your ego at the door and just being real. Mm-hmm. Like, and if you do have a big ego, let it shine, let it fly. But
I disagree, but all right.
I'm saying, but if that's your authentic you, be authentic.
Okay. I mean, yeah, but yet
Google, what's the definition?
But you know, yet we put down everybody who's flashy like that. You know, like
I don't mean flashy though. I don't put people down like that either. It's just, I think it's comical at times, you know?
I put people down like,
there he is. There he is. Yeah. He keeps me humble. He keeps me in check.
Yeah. Good for you for not wearing glasses.
Ugh, I hate you all.
So anyway, we'll have to, like, my intention about doing this thing, especially being at Dehle, is the fact that, like, hopefully you'll be able to come in more and more and more, and like have frequent guests, like have regulars. Unless
we have people that are like, please don't bring her back.
At the end of the day, the only person that matters is me. Remember, I've already stated I don't like to listen to people.
This is the Ryan Show. Yeah, so anyway, I appreciate you opening up the floor to have this conversation, because you know, it is tough to speak it out there because everybody wants these polished how to, just tell me what to do. And I think deep down, I am kind of an advocate, and I feel like my strength is just being honest about it, and then hopefully having people look at themselves as like the mindset. I've had so many people that say, well, how do you get to that mindset? And I was like, that's the journey. That is the toughest. And I don't know how to tell you to get there other than be aware of it and spend time thinking about where you are. And that's it. You're going to have the transformations come as you go.
And I have no credibility to say this, but for me, it comes down to fuck it. Let's see what happens.
It's like Mark Manson, right?
You know,
the subtle art.
Yeah. I have that book too.
That's a really good one. He makes a good point. But again, to say F it
I mean F it in the sense of, let's come what may, let's see what happens.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's to say F it is to get rid of your ego, because what you're doing is saying, I'm just going to go for this and I'm just going to accept what comes in my way. But at the end of the day, you're going to grow and learn. And you might, you know, some people might not like what you're doing, but then maybe a year down the road, 2 years down the road, you might have it figured out, and then people are going to be like, "Oh, wow, how did he get there?"
Well, it's like literally like a week ago, I posted, in the Propelio group about how Propelio TV hit 1 million minutes in a 28-day period. And that was one of my biggest goals with that channel from day one. And now I'm starting over with my YouTube channel. It's like, I just had 1 million and now it's like 100 hours.
Yeah, but
again though, I'm happy about that. I'm like, cool. I'm happy that people are watching on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitch or Restream, all the channels it's on.
I don't even know what those are.
No one does, and no one's watching on them either.
Yeah.
But I'm happy, and again, maybe that's just my perspective of doing the media side and having no expectations. And maybe I jokingly don't have an ego. I don't know. But for me, to have anybody want to pay attention to you and listen to you and watch you, and if it is a friend giving you support, that's awesome too. But to me, if it's a stranger who sees value in what you're giving, that's awesome. And if it's one person, 2 people, 10 people, to me, that is as awesome as 100,000 people. Granted, 100,000 people would be a lot. That's kick ass. But to have anybody, I think is like you said, humbling.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think if you stay in that space, I think if you just stay there and just be grateful. Sounds cheesy and cliche, but again, you have to be okay with yourself and where you are. And if you're not, figure that out first and then go on. Most of the advice out there, it's like everybody's super polished in the advice that they give. And it's super easy to give advice when you've gone through it and you're like, now I'm successful. That's easiest. And you don't hear from the people who are in the valleys right now because they think it's a shame thing.
Well, that's what I'm glad you brought up the polish, because Alana Sarabia is coming up this afternoon, and she's a talk show host on Good Morning Texas. And what I want to talk to her about is the public versus the personal personas, because she is so polished. And it'll be interesting to see if getting her in here, if she's going to be stage Alana or just, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, because I've seen her on YouTube, I've seen her on TV, and it's so polished, and not in a negative way, in a polished way, because that's what her job is. And it's just interesting to see, at least it'll be interesting for me to see if I can get the other side of that.
It's kind of crazy because we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. It's like everybody makes fun if you're not put together or it wasn't super like value, yet they still want the vulnerability and the humility and the rawness. And it's like you get conflicting people, and it is tough out there, which is why I'm like, just be comfortable and be who you are. 2 people I love to follow on social media are actually Sarah Blakely and Jesse Itzler. You know, with the CEO of Spanx, and he wrote Living with the Seal, and he owned Marquis Jet and a few other, like serial entrepreneurs. But they are so raw. He just wears t-shirts. His hair is a mess. She's singing in her phone all the time, and yet she's worth millions upon millions. And even though they have to be polished for their companies, they are so honest and real. And my husband was like, man, I'm surprised they don't have more followers for who they are. And I was like, maybe because they are just so real. Like they aren't putting out that polished Instagram post with the perfect filters anymore. And so some people identify with that. I think the people that do are possibly just I think they haven't fallen yet. They haven't like gotten real with themselves yet. And I think when they do, I think we'll start to gravitate back to that kind of reality.
Well, I said that from day one with Daniel at Propelio. It's like, if we want 100,000 subscribers on Propelio TV, all you got to do is every single video needs to be how to get started in real estate.
I mean, honestly, yeah. People just want the bullet points.
But for me, I personally had zero interest in that. I would rather have quality conversations. So like for this, like, whereas I think there's value that was gotten out of this conversation or brought to the table, I'm not too worried about it. Like, I'm not worried that there's bullet points of how to do this, how to do that, because if you, even in this conversation, I don't think there was ever well, how do you do this? You know, there might have been like, what's your opinion or whatever, but I'm not trying to go for the golden nugget shower. I'm not going for that. If it comes, it comes. But to me, I'm more interested in a quality conversation with an interesting person.
And I think that also, like, the roadmaps, listen, like I said, try to follow someone else's roadmap and you're just going to not get to where you want to go. You need to ask the right questions. And you need to be around people that are asking the right questions. I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen with people who don't do their jobs well or who are just in turmoil is they're not asking the right questions to themselves or the people that they need help from. So start there. If you don't know what your why, how do I figure that out? Like ask those questions rather than say, oh, it's freedom. Like, gosh, like it's freedom for what? Like, what do you actually want to do? Like, what is your purpose? Like,
But on the flip side of that, Gary V, his big thing is
I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I'm putting it out there.
It's okay. I don't think he'll ever see this, so
He
it's okay.
probably won't.
Why do you hate Gary? No, but it's the whole. There's people that make $50,000 a year, and they're the happiest people on the earth.
Yeah.
If that's what they want to do, go for it. So.
Yeah, teach their own, but know your own. You know, like.
Ooh, that's deep. Ooh. Teach their own and know your own.
And know your own.
What the hell does that mean?
Guru Casey podcast starting soon. Now then, just know like. If that's what you want to own it, but like know what you really want. I think a lot of people just don't know that. The questions that I get all the time are, what should I do? How should I do this? I'm like, that's for you to decide. Like, I don't know why you're asking me this question. Like, this is for you. How can I possibly make that decision for you? And I think too many people are looking for that blueprint and that how to exact step by step by step. And they don't know who they are or what they want yet. So how can you build a business if you don't know those answers?
So what do you want and who are you?
I'm still figuring that out.
Okay.
Personally, like I have my own mission to I said this to somebody the other day, like I genuinely seek wisdom. That's like my number one thing. I just want to seek wisdom and get wisdom. To me, that's greater than anything. And I think naturally, I just want to be around people that we have conversations, like vulnerable conversations, and that I hope that everybody I know and meet just kind of feels uplifted and better, and that I'm not like, I think my mission is to honestly I'm just gonna say it, just make God known and, you know, make the world, you know, just be a better person. That's all that it is to me. And everything that I do in my day to day aligns with that. And that's it.
So
I think they're like cringing in the background.
Should do the $5 too.
Anyway, I think I'm getting drowned out now.
No. So real quick, there at least is one person on YouTube who Hustle Gifted said full of value. So good
at
for
least
us.
one. Thank you.
At least one person got value. So last question is, and this is a Tyler question.
Oh, I don't even know if I want to answer this then.
What celebrity would play you in a movie about your life?
Oh, that's funny. I don't really know celebrities very well.
It's not the
Although somebody used to tell me that I look like the chick from The Office, Pam.
It's not about looks. It's not
no,
about looks.
her mannerisms, like not her character on that, but her as a celebrity.
Okay.
Like they said that her mannerisms and everything like remind, or Amy Adams.
So Amy Adams.
I think Amy Adams would probably be the right one.
Okay. So I don't really know Amy Adams enough, and I don't really know
She was in.
I know who she is. I know
so many movies.
I know who she is. I'm just saying I don't know her.
Okay.
enough. Because Tyler's point about that question is a psychological question because it actually shows how you view yourself.
Interesting.
So like if you answered like an old hag, well, it's like, well, you probably don't have a very good self-image.
That's an interesting question. You have to, I mean,
you know,
I think she's.
I think that means you have a good self-image because Amy Adams is a kick-ass person, right?
I don't know. I don't know her in real
Tommy,
life.
who would play you in a movie?
Steven Seagal.
I was just going to say that.
No hesitation.
Well, he's thought about this. What's your answer?
Not Jack Black. Anybody but Jack Black. That's the only answer because everybody is always like, "You remind me of Jack Black." I'm like the most ugliest person in Hollywood.
No, but he's so funny. He's way funnier than you, though. So.
I know he's way funnier than me.
But he sings like you do.
I know, but it's like he's so
very
gross.
accomplished. No, he's not.
He's so gross.
Nacho Libre, come on.
He's so disgusting.
Anyway, I think he's hilarious.
He is funny. I'm a fan of him, but like. Again, that shows my own self-image. My self-image is not Jack Black.
So who would you pick?
Like Channing Tatum.
Okay. Here we go.
I'm just kidding.
Very good. This is getting weird.
There we go.
It latches.
All right. So, Casey, as far as if anybody doesn't know you, how they get a hold of you, what kind of business? Blah,
Well,
blah, blah.
if you want, if you care to know me, I don't know if you do after this. I love to connect with anybody on Facebook. Is probably the best way to go. Shoot me a message. It's just my name. I think it's right there.
Yeah, but again,
And it's the same
you
on
can't see it on the
Instagram.
same. You can
Casey
see it.
Dehle.
Casey Dehle.
CASEY
Not Casey Dehle.
Dehle. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm obsessed with podcasts and I quote wisdom and things that I read and think about. So if you care about that stuff, feel free to hop on and connect.
Well, cool. And I'm Ryan Harper. Thank you for watching, listening, and all those things. Subscribe, like, share, all those things that you're supposed to do. There's affiliates and stuff in the comments below, and that's trying to. I'm trying to go full, not guru, but I'm trying to go full promoter because that's what Gary Harper says I am. I'm a promoter.
You are.
So it's like screw it. So like if you go to trypropelio.com, that's my affiliate link to be a Propelio subscriber. I worked there for 2.5 years. Why the
Might as
hell
well
not?
get some benefit.
Might as well keep on.
Well, I guess I
promoting.
should throw my business in there too. For
That's
Atlas.
what I tried. Oh, you want to interrupt my pitching?
Yeah. But one more thing.
Well, but more me.
Atlas
speaking
TC
of
Services.
Speaking of ego,
If you're an investor or a realtor that needs a kick-ass TC who knows the business and knows how to clear liens, call me.
oh, speaking of realtors, I'm speaking at I'm going to be on a panel on February 6th here in Garland. There's an event called the 2020 something or another. Let me look that up real quick.
Are we going to wait while he looks up his own promotion? Is this happening? I
We'll
interrupted
do it
you.
live. Fuck it.
It's the 2020
Why don't
year.
you post it in the comments?
I will,
when you
but
find it.
the 2020 Year of Perfect Vision is hosted by Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation. It's over in Garland on February 6th. But yeah, so if you're looking for if you're looking for skip tracing, go to trybatchskip.com. That's my affiliate for them. Woohoo! And then also go to trypropelio.com to check out Propelio. That's all I got. Got a couple events. Hopefully you follow me on social media. If not, I have no idea how you came
You're
across
the
this
event
podcast.
king.
I hate the whole queen and king thing.
I know. I'm an empress. I decided.
You're an empress.
I'm an empress.
You're the TC Empress.
Empress. My VAs are my queens.
Oh my gosh.
I'm just kidding.
And with that, Tommy, you got anything?
I don't.
It's lunchtime. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening. All right. Thank you, everybody.
I've been out on the ocean, searching for something that ain't blue. And you got sick of the